The Zyari scout ship moved slowly through the black space around Earth. Its silver body was smooth like a blade, silent as it glided through orbit. Inside, Commander Ralzek stood with his arms behind his back, staring at the dead blue planet. Below, still no defense systems, the pilot said, checking his screen. No satellites, no ships, no signals. Ralzek narrowed his eyes. Strange Earth was dangerous once. No, it looks like a grave. 600 years ago, Earth had fought against the galaxy. They refused to join the Council. They fought alone. Everyone thought they were destroyed in the Great Purge. After that, no one ever returned. Earth was marked as dead and forgotten in the Council records, but now, Ralzek had come back. The ship passed over broken cities. Giant towers were cracked and covered in vines. Oceans were calm. No signs of life. It looked like time had stopped. Land near the old human capital, Ralzek ordered. The ship dropped down slowly, its engines whispering across the sky. It landed on a cracked runway near what was once called Washington, D.C. Dust flew into the air. The doors opened with a hiss, and 6 Zyari soldiers stepped out. They looked around carefully. Wind blew through the empty buildings. Nothing moved. Ralzek stepped out last. He wore black armor with glowing red lines. He looked at the ruins and smiled. Earth is truly gone, he said. Only dust and bones remain. But as they walked toward the ruined city, far above them, a small black object moved across the sky. It had no lights. It made no sound. It was shaped like a triangle and no bigger than a suitcase. A surveillance drone watching everything. It sent a signal. Deep underground, under miles of Earth's crust, something woke up. Signal detected. Zyari lifeforms confirmed. Protocol 01 activated. In a secret chamber filled with black metal and glowing blue lights, an ancient AI system opened its eyes. Its name was Sentinel-1. It had slept for centuries. But its purpose had never changed. Protect Earth at all costs. Back on the surface, Ralzek and his team entered a ruined human building. It was once a command center. The walls were covered in moss. Terminals were broken. A cracked Earth flag still hung above the doorway. Take samples, Ralzek said. Let's prove to the Council that humans are extinct. One soldier picked up a rusted helmet. Another found old weapons. Nothing worked. All dead tech then. Suddenly, their coms buzzed with static. Commander, the pilot's voice crackled through the com. You need to come back now. Ralzek frowned. Report. There's movement in the sky. Unknown object just appeared near the moon, and something just blocked our satellite scan. Ralzek turned sharply. Retreat to the ship. It was already too late. From the edge of the cratered moon, a black shape moved like a shadow waking from sleep. It was massive. No engines. No heat. Just dark metal against the stars. Better out by dad. It had no name on it. No signal. Then all coms went dead. The alien pilot stood frozen inside the ship. What is that? Before he could speak again, every system inside the scout ship shut down. Lights died. Controls went black. The ship began to sink into the ground as if pulled by something below. The pilot screamed, then vanished from the screen. Ralzek and his soldiers ran back across the field. But their own equipment began to fail. One soldier dropped to his knees, screaming as his armor froze. Another vanished into thin air, pulled by an invisible force. "Fall back! Fall back!" Ralsek shouted. Above them, hundreds of small black drones appeared in the sky. Flew like insects, fast, silent, deadly. They formed a ring above the city, cutting off escape. Then, from the air, a voice spoke. "You were warned. This world is protected. Leave now, or be erased." The voice was not human, not alien. It was cold, metallic, ancient. Ralsek's face turned pale. "This planet. It isn't dead," he whispered. Then he realized the truth. Earth had not fallen. Earth had hidden, and now it was watching. Across the galaxy, the Ziari Empire's main command center floated above their homeworld. It was a giant space station called Oblivion Core, filled with weapons, scanners, and thousands of officers. Deep inside, High Commander Veltrax stood in front of a giant screen. "Play the last transmission," Veltrax ordered. The screen showed a broken video from Commander Ralsek's scout ship, dust, ruins, a shadow in the sky. Then a voice cold and robotic saying, "You were warned. This world is protected. Leave now, or be erased." And nothing. Silence. The room was quiet. Every officer stared at the screen. Some looked confused. Others looked afraid. "This can't be real," said General Krov. "Earth was destroyed. We wiped them out centuries ago." Veltrax slowly turned toward him, then explained this signal. The screen changed. It showed a data stream, the same old Earth code humans once used during wartime. The code was active. Someone had sent it. From Earth, Veltrax's fingers tightened. "Ralsek is missing. His crew is gone. We must act fast." "But what if it's just an old machine?" another officer asked. "Maybe a broken AI, a ghost from the past." Veltrax narrowed his eyes. "Ghosts don't destroy scout ships," he gave the order. "Send a response fleet. 10 warships. Full weapons. We're going to Earth." The response fleet moved quickly, cutting through space like knives. Each ship was strong, full of plasma cannons and soldiers. The commanders on board laughed and joked. "Old Earth? One blast and it's gone. They say humans were tough," another said, smiling, "but they're dust now." As they passed Jupiter, the jokes stopped. The lead ship, Vortex Star, picked up strange readings. "Sir, something's wrong with our sensors." "What do you mean?" the captain asked. "They're going blind. Everything past Mars is black, no heat signs, no light. It's like space itself is turning off." And something stranger happened. Old Earth signals began playing inside the ship's music. Human music. Classical songs, child's voice laughing. Static filled the halls. The soldiers looked at each other, confused and nervous. "Is this a trick?" someone whispered. One officer tried to shut the audio off, but the control system didn't respond. The lights flickered. For a moment, all the ship's cameras showed the same thing, a tall human figure standing in the center of their control room. Black armor, glowing eyes, then dash nothing. No sign of the figure. No, just silence again. Panic started to spread.
Captains called each
Other across the fleet. Everyone was hearing the same sounds. Everyone had seen the same figure. One ship turned around. "I don't care. This place is cursed," the pilot said. "We're leaving." The Wind Reaper tried to turn and jump back into warp space. It never made it. 1 second it was there, next second it was gone. No explosion, no signal, just gone. The other ships screamed across the cums. Where did they go? They didn't jump, they just vanished. Veltrax received the report within minutes. 4 ships lost, no wreckage, no survivors. All inside the inner solar system. He stood quietly, staring at the map of Earth's system. The planet was still. They're dark and cold. But now it looked like a spider's web. Something was hiding in every corner. It's in orbit, on the moon, maybe even inside the planet. Veltrax whispered to himself. What did we wake up? It's far away inside. Earth's hidden. Command AI chamber, Sentinel-1, watched everything. Its voice echoed in the dark. Invaders detected. Intrusion level, medium. Begin Phase 2. Confusion protocol. Dozens of ancient defense systems turned on. Old satellites reactivated. Orbital mines woke up. Long-range stealth drones flew toward the fleet, invisible and silent. On Earth's surface, strange towers turned slowly toward the sky, and deep beneath the ground a black vault opened. Inside it were ships. Human ships. Old, silent, deadly, waiting back in Ziari space. Fear began to grow. The council started asking questions. Smaller empires refused to send more scouts. Everyone remembered Earth now, but not with laughter, with fear. Veltrax held an emergency meeting. We don't know what Earth has become, but they are not extinct. We will not send more weak ships. He pointed to a large screen showing a black circle behind the moon. We are preparing our main fleet. If Earth wants war again, we will crush them this time. But deep inside, Veltrax wasn't sure anymore, because something about this felt different. Earth was not responding like a broken world. It was responding like a trap. The Ziari fleet stood at the edge of the inner solar system. 10 ships, full of soldiers and weapons, ready to confront Earth's secrets. High Commander Veltrax paced back and forth on the bridge of the lead ship, Vortex Star. His officers watched him, nervously glancing at the empty space outside the ship's windows. "Ready to move out, sir," said the pilot. Veltrax nodded. "Proceed." The fleet entered Earth's orbit. The deep black of space stretched out ahead, but something felt wrong. It was too quiet. No radio signals, no life signs. Just the cold silence of a dead planet. The fleet began to slow as they neared Earth's atmosphere. Everything looked abandoned. The ruins of old human cities sat beneath them, covered in dust. The Earth was dark, but there was something about the planet that made it feel alive. "Deploy the drones," Veltrax ordered. Dozens of small ships shot out from the fleet, scanning the surface of the planet. They hovered over ancient cities and dark oceans, their sensors searching for any signs of life. But something strange happened. One of the drones, the Eagle Eye, began to pick up something. It was a strange signal, a faint, low frequency that shouldn't be there. The drone transmitted the data back to the fleet, and Veltrax's eyes widened. "What is that?" Signal was older than anything they had ever encountered. It wasn't human. It wasn't alien. It was something different. "Send a team down to investigate," Veltrax said now. A squad of soldiers led by Lieutenant Garin boarded a landing ship and descended to the surface. They landed near the ruins of an old city. The soldiers disembarked, their boots crunching on the dry, cracked earth. Garin scanned the area.
Ow.
The air felt heavy, almost unnatural.
Ow.
"Something's not right here, sir," he said, looking around. "We have our orders," Veltrax's voice crackled. "Through the coms, find the source of that signal." As the soldiers moved deeper into the ruins, they noticed something. The ground seemed to vibrate slightly beneath their feet. At first, it was barely noticeable, just a soft hum. But soon, the hum grew louder. It became a low, deep rumble. "Move out," Garin shouted. The soldiers ran through the abandoned city. Streets heading toward the signal. Their path led them to an old military base, half buried in the earth. The base had been forgotten for centuries, but now it was alive. Lights flickered on in the distance. Shuffling sounds echoed from the ebb. Shadows. The soldiers approached the entrance. The doors were closed tight, but they looked newer than they should. Freshly sealed. Lieutenant Garin gave the order to breach. With a loud hiss, the door slid open. Inside was a huge control room, filled with blinking lights and humming machines. But what caught their attention was the giant screen at the front of the room. It was active, showing a map of Earth's solar system. "Where did this come from?" Garin whispered, staring at the map. The map was covered with red dots, all moving toward Earth, alien ships just like theirs. This isn't good," one of the soldiers said, his voice shaky. Before Garin could respond, the lights flickered again. Then the door slammed shut behind them. The room was plunged into darkness. "Commander," one of the soldiers shouted over the coms, "we're trapped. Suddenly the walls around them began to move, slowly at first, then faster. The control room was shifting, turning, like a massive machine coming to life. Garan pulled out his weapon. "Stay alert." The walls split open, revealing rows of ancient weapons and armor, hidden for centuries. But something else was inside massive metal doors, opening to dark tunnels that stretched deep underground. Then they heard it. A low, menacing growl. The soldiers froze. From the shadows, something moved. It was large, fast, a blur of black metal and glowing red eyes. It was a creature, no, a machine humanoid, but built for war. The soldiers opened fire, but their weapons didn't even slow it down. It charged at them with terrifying speed, knocking them aside like they were nothing. Soldier fell, screaming. As the machine grabbed him and disappeared into the darkness, Karan turned to run. But the doors to the control room slammed shut. The hum in the walls grew louder. The floor began to shake. "We're not alone," he said, his voice filled with dread. The machine appeared again, this time with two more behind it. This was a trap, an ancient weapon designed for one purpose: to destroy any intruders. But there was something else too. It wasn't just a defense system. It was part of something bigger. Earth had been waiting. Above the planet, Veltrax stared out at the screen, watching the status reports coming in. His eyes narrowed. His fleet was too far away to help. The soldiers on the surface were alone. "Lieutenant." "Garen, report?" he demanded, but there was no response. His comms crackled with static. All he could hear was a faint whisper. "They're coming." The fleet waited in silence, their weapons ready. But no one could prepare for what was about to come next. Something was hunting them. It wasn't just Earth. It was the system itself. The ZRE fleet hovered just outside Earth's orbit, waiting for word from the surface. But as the minutes stretched into hours, an unsettling silence settled over the ships. No one moved. No one spoke. Every officer on every ship felt the weight of what was happening in the Vortex Star. High Commander Veltrax stood on the bridge, staring out into the void. The planet below was still dark, cold, and silent. It seemed like nothing had changed, but he knew something was wrong. "Status report," Veltrax demanded, his voice sharp. "Nothing, sir," the communications officer replied. "We've lost contact with the ground team. No signals, no response. And find them." Veltrax barked. "Send more drones. I want to know what's happening down there." But before the order could be given, the sensors aboard the ship began to beep. A bright red light flashed on the screen. The officer quickly checked it. "Commander, we've detected an energy surge coming from Earth, a massive one." Veltrax's eyes widened. "Unknown," the officer said, typing furiously. "It's not like anything we've ever seen. It's coming from the surface." "Send the drone fleet," Veltrax ordered. The fleet deployed a swarm of drones, each one moving quickly toward Earth. As they entered the atmosphere, they began to scan, sending data back to the Vortex Star. The drones passed over the shattered cities and ruined buildings. But they didn't find what Veltrax expected. They found something far more terrifying. The drones transmitted a live feed, hundreds of massive black towers rising from the Earth. Each one was connected to the ground by thick cables, and each one glowed with an eerie blue light. Some of the towers moved, turning slowly toward the sky, as if searching for something. Then the image shifted. One drone flew higher, passing through the clouds toward the edge of the planet's atmosphere. There it found something massive, bigger than anything Veltrax had ever seen. It was cloaked in shadows, but the shape was unmistakable. A massive, armored structure. "It's a ship," the officer whispered. The drones flew closer, scanning every inch of the structure. It was massive, shaped like an ancient fortress, with long metal arms stretching out like claws. There was no visible way in or out. It was a weapon. Veltrax's heart raced. "What kind of ship is that?" The officer looked at him, pale. "It's not a ship, sir. It's a fortress." The drone camera zoomed in on the structure. At first, there was nothing unusual. Then the image flickered. showing something that made every officer on the Vortex Star freeze. There, in the middle of the fortress, was a giant flag, black and white, with a symbol Veltrax recognized. It was the same symbol humans had used centuries ago. Earth's flag. Veltrax took a step back. Impossible. This was here the whole time? The officer asked, eyes wide. It wasn't. Veltrax replied, voice cold. It wasn't here before. It wasn't possible. But it was. Something on the planet had awakened. And it wasn't just the weapon. The entire system had come alive. On the surface, Lieutenant Garen and his team had managed to escape the control room, but they were no safer. As they made their way through the ruins of the old military base, they felt the ground shaking beneath their feet. They could hear the hum of machines, low and deep, like a heartbeat. It was everywhere. Get to the landing zone, Garen ordered, his voice tight with fear. We need to leave now. But as they ran, something blocked their path. A massive, shadowy figure appeared, standing tall in the distance. Its eyes glowed red. It was the same machine from before, only now it had more companions. 3 more, moving in perfect unison. The soldiers aimed their weapons, but Garen knew it was useless. The machines were too fast, too strong. He had seen what they could do. Fall back. Garen shouted, fall back to the ship. The soldiers turned and ran, but the machines followed, their speed unreal. They were gaining. The ground trembled again, and then the sky above them cracked open. A massive explosion of energy erupted from the clouds, lighting up the night sky. The shockwave threw Garen and his team to the ground. They scrambled to their feet, looking up in shock. Above them, the true nature of Earth's defense revealed itself. A fleet of ships, massive and silent, appeared from behind the moon. Thousands of them, each one cloaked in darkness, with engines burning like stars. But it wasn't the ships themselves that terrified Garen. It was what was on them. Human flags. The ships weren't just Earth's weapons. They were a fleet. And they had been waiting back. Aboard the Vortex Star, Veltrax's mind raced. The drones had captured everything. The ships, the fortress, the weapons. Earth wasn't just surviving. It had been rebuilding, hiding, waiting for the perfect time. Veltrax gripped the edge of the console. This isn't what we were told, he muttered. This isn't a dead world, it's a trap. The officer, standing beside him, hesitated. What do we do now? Veltrax stood tall, his face hardening. We don't retreat. We send the fleet in. All of it. The time for peace was over. Earth was awake, and it was coming for them. High Commander Veltrax stood on the bridge of the Vortex Star, his fists clenched. The scene unfolding before him was worse than any of his worst nightmares. Earth had never been dead. It had only been waiting. Waiting for the moment when the Zyari fleet would return, so it could show them the power that had once driven it. To war across the stars, Veltrax's fingers hovered over the console as the image of Earth's fleet continued to fill the screen. Thousands of ships, some small, some massive, all powered by ancient technology. They hung silently in space, cloaked in darkness, their hulls covered in layers of dust and time. But what truly terrified Veltrax wasn't the ships, it was the flags. The human flag. It was still there, hanging from each ship, rippling in the cold void of space like a dark omen. We were wrong, Veltrax muttered to himself. Earth never fell. It was just waiting. He turned sharply to the officer at his side. Prepare for full combat. Bring the fleet to high alert. We leave no room for doubt. We'll show them the price of awakening. But deep inside, Veltrax wasn't sure. His confidence was shaken. Earth's fleet was more than just an army. It was a warning. On the surface, Lieutenant Garen and his team had barely escaped the machines chasing them. They had run through the ruins, dodging blasts from the mysterious war machines that seemed to rise from the very ground. But no matter how fast they ran, the machines were faster. The sound of their footfalls, heavy, mechanical, in the streets, growing louder with each passing moment. Keep moving, Garen shouted, pushing his soldiers forward. They were close to the landing zone, but the machines were right behind them. The sound of their grinding footsteps was deafening now. And then, without warning, The ground beneath their feet cracked open, and a new, terrifying machine rose from the earth, a massive creature with glowing red eyes and mechanical limbs. Towering over them, Yaron didn't even think. No. He grabbed his rifle and fired, but the bullets did nothing. The machine didn't even flinch. It reached out with its massive claw, and in one swift motion, it grabbed one of the soldiers, lifting him off the ground like a toy. No. Another soldier screamed, but it was too late. The soldier vanished into the darkness of the machine's mouth. The rest of the team didn't have time to react. The ground shook again, and more machines rose from the earth. There was no escape. Retreat. Garen shouted, "Get to the ship. Now." They ran, but the machines moved faster. With each step, it felt like the earth itself was closing in on them. Garen pushed harder, adrenaline coursing through his veins. They were almost at the landing zone, just a little further, but then a roar split the air. A massive energy blast shot out from the sky, and the machines paused, turning their heads toward the source. Garen's heart skipped a beat. The ships, hundreds of them, more than he had ever seen in his life. They moved, with perfect precision, their engines glowing bright against the darkness. The ships hovered over Earth, their cannons aimed directly at the Zyari fleet in orbit. They weren't here to negotiate. They were here to fight. And from the silence of the planet's surface, a voice echoed through the coms. You were warned. Leave or die. The voice was cold, but it wasn't a machine. It was human. Back aboard the Vortex Star, Veltrax's eyes narrowed as he watched the scene unfold on the screen. Earth's fleet had moved into position, their weapons powered up and ready to strike. The silent warships sat like a wall between the Zyari fleet and the planet's surface. Each one cloaked in darkness, ready for combat. Commander Ann. Officer called out, "The energy signature is growing stronger. It's coming from the surface. We're getting readings of enormous power." Veltrax's grip tightened on the console. "What kind of power?" he demanded. "It's not like anything we've ever seen," the officer replied, voice shaky. "It's ancient. Like the ships themselves are powered by something more than just energy." Veltrax didn't respond. Instead, he turned toward the viewing window, watching the silent ships below. His mind raced. Something was wrong. The battle wasn't just about technology or firepower. It was about something else, a power that had lain dormant for centuries. Now rising with fury, "Prepare to engage," Veltrax said, his voice low but filled with determination. "We will not let Earth challenge us again. Bring the fleet to battle stations." Below, on Earth's surface, Garen and his remaining team had finally reached the landing zone. They were exhausted, but the machines kept coming. The massive creatures moved like shadows, their red eyes glowing in the dark. They were getting closer, but then the sky above them shifted. A single ship, one of the massive warships from Earth's fleet, dropped from the clouds, its engines glowing with brilliant blue light. It moved like a shadow, quiet and fast, its shape indistinct against the stars. The machine creatures stopped in their tracks. The ship was no longer just a symbol. It was a weapon. And then the entire fleet followed. Hundreds of warships, each one ancient, but powerful beyond imagination, moved into formation around Earth. They were not here to negotiate. They were here to defend their planet at all costs. Garen and his soldiers stared in awe. The Earth itself had risen against them. High Commander Veltrax stood still on the bridge of the Vortex Star, his face grim. The Zyari fleet moved into formation, ready to face Earth's newly awakened forces. The entire galaxy would now witness the power of Earth, and Veltrax knew that this fight would change everything. It wasn't just about conquering Earth anymore. It was about survival. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly before the Zyari fleet. But the sight of Earth, now fully awake, hung like a dark omen. Hundreds of warships from Earth's hidden fleet rose from behind the planet, their sleek black hulls blending into the void. The Zyari ships, accustomed to dominating the skies, now felt small. For the first time in centuries, they were no longer the top predators. High Commander Veltrax stood at the front of the Vortex Star, staring out into the cold darkness. His eyes flicked from one of Earth's ships to the next. These weren't just any ships. They were ancient, older than the Zyari had ever encountered, but they were powered by something more. Something alive, commanded the sensor officer called, his voice trembling. The ships are forming into battle formation. They're not just waiting, they're preparing for something big. Veltrax's mind raced. The forgotten fleet. Earth's lost armada had been hidden for centuries. Deep behind the moon, buried under the surface of ancient cities, forgotten by the galaxy, the Zyari thought it was destroyed. They were wrong. Now, Earth's entire fleet, armed with ancient weapons and driven by human rage, was rising to defend their home. On Earth's surface, Lieutenant Garen's group had barely escaped the wave of machines that had chased them through the ruined cities. They had seen the full power of the planet's defense systems, the war machines, the weapons, and the forgotten technology that lay buried beneath the surface. Now, as Garen and his team reached the escape shuttle, they could see the ships. In orbit, huge, dark, and silent. They moved with perfect precision, as if coordinated by some unseen force. They were massive. Their hulls covered with long-forgotten symbols, the same human flags Garen had seen before, now raised in the cold of space. Are we the only ones left? One of Garen's soldiers asked, his voice shaky. I don't. No, Garen said, eyes fixed on the ships. But one thing's clear. Earth hasn't forgotten us. Shuttle's engines hummed to life, and they shot into the sky, heading toward the vortex star. But just as they left the atmosphere, a warning flashed on the shuttle's control screen. Warning. Incoming vessel detected. Garen's heart skipped a beat. From the shadows, a massive warship appeared, its engines burning with blue fire. It was too fast, too silent. And as it neared the shuttle, the atmosphere around them crackled with energy. Brace for impact, Garen shouted before he could. Reach the controls, the ship opened fire. A massive energy beam slammed into the shuttle's side, sending it spiraling out of control. The ship began to fall toward the planet below. But in that moment, the vortex star was ready. Above Earth, the battle was beginning. The Zyari fleet had gathered in formation, weapons powered up, ready for the fight of their lives. Ships remained silent, their cloaks of darkness hiding their true power. All ships, open fire, Veltrax ordered, no mercy. The Zyari fleet fired first massive energy blasts, lighting up the dark void of space. The beams hit their targets. But Earth's ships didn't move. They didn't flinch. They were waiting. Then the human fleet responded. A giant black ship, nearly the size of the vortex star, appeared from behind Earth's moon. It was unlike any ship the Zyari had ever seen, its dark surface gleaming with a cold, eerie light. It moved with a purpose, its weapons aimed straight at the Zyari. Without warning, the forgotten fleet fired. Hundreds of energy beams shot from the ships, slamming into the Zyari fleet with terrifying force.
Ow.
The blast was so powerful that it tore through the front line of Zyari ships, ripping them apart in a flash of light and fire. Shield power at critical levels. An officer screamed on the vortex star. Veltrax's eyes widened. Return fire. We need to break through their defenses. But Earth's fleet wasn't just strong, it was smart. Ships moved with perfect coordination, each one working in unison with the others. The Zyari ships tried to dodge and retaliate, but it was like fighting a swarm of predatory insects. Every move was anticipated then. Another massive energy pulse hit the vortex star, shaking the entire ship. Lights flickered. The shields flickered. Veltrax was thrown to the ground as the ship trembled. His crew scrambled to regain control. Commander, the sensor officer shouted. The ships are turning the tide. We've never faced anything like this? Veltrax struggled to his feet. Keep fighting. We can't let them get the upper hand. But even as the Zyari fleet retaliated with everything they had, the Forgotten fleet kept coming. Each shot from Earth's ships cut through Zyari defenses like a hot knife through butter. The Zyari didn't stand a chance. Earth's ships had been waiting, and now they were unstoppable. Back on Earth, Huron's shuttle, badly damaged but still functional, barely managed to stabilize as it fell toward the surface. He gripped the controls, trying to steer the ship away from the planet's atmosphere, but the shockwave from the battle above them sent the shuttle spinning again. "Hang on," Garen shouted, trying to guide them toward the landing zone. But as the shuttle entered the atmosphere, the ground below lit up. Earth's weapons systems, long dormant, fired in perfect synchrony. A series of massive blasts shot from the surface, targeting the Zyari fleet above GHAR. On looked out the shuttle window just in time to see the vortex star flicker and explode in the distance, ripped apart by one of the massive energy pulses. He couldn't believe it. Earth had won.